Hey everybody, Tall Family Films here. Today we're doing sway bar end links or stabilizer bar links on a 2012 Acura MDX. The same process would apply for a lot of the ZDX and Honda Pilots as well. So take the tire off, and for safety reasons you always want to slide it under the car or use jack stands or both. Highly recommended. Now this is the sway bar end link right here. It is attached by 2 bolts on every model car, and this stabilizes the car when you go around turns and when you go over little bumps, and especially if you're turning and going over a bump. So I'm going to use an impact wrench here to remove the top bolt, and what's happening here is the entire stud is spinning. So I'm going to just push the speed of the impact wrench even higher to try to force the nut to come off, and that happened to work here, and I'll give you some tips and tricks later for when that doesn't work. So after we remove the top bolt, we just move along to the bottom one. Pretty standard, simple process that is easy to follow. Okay, so here's a little puzzle. The pressure of the knuckle just hanging down is keeping the sway bar end link in there, so I can't physically pull it out. I could bang it out, but that might mess up, you know, the port that it's in or the threads if it were a new one. So put a jack stand underneath the lower control arm of the truck, and then slowly let the jack down, which will put some pressure on the lower control arm as the weight of the car starts to compress the strut. So you can see it lowering there, and as it gets low enough, then all the pressure is off of the bolt, and you can just simply remove it, because that bolt is actually attached to the strut. Okay, so it's always a good idea to compare the old and the new parts when you're replacing something before you go trying to put it in. The old one appears to be identical in length, but it's very simple for me to move the stud within the boot. It's very, very easy. The new one it's a lot harder for me to physically get it to move. You can see there's a lot of pressure there, a lot more tension. So that's going to provide a lot better stability in turns, and especially if I'm going over a bump in a turn. So it's incredible how easy this job is. You literally are now just sliding these back in, and then we got to put the nuts back on. Some of the kits come with nuts. I would use the new nuts if you have them. And don't forget thread locker. This guy's forgetting thread locker, but he's about to remember that he needs that. So you don't want these nuts backing back out on their own. So it doesn't matter if you use a permanent or a semi-permanent. You'll be able to get them back off either way. Certainly with a pry bar or an impact wrench, either one. So I wanted to show what a boot looks like when it's in really bad shape. There's supposed to be grease inside these boots, and the boot holds the grease in, and there's a little ball in there, and you're going to get to see inside one in just a second. But this one was making a terrible knocking noise every time I would go around a curve, and my wife wanted to get a new car. So instead I replaced a $10 part, and it rides incredibly smooth now. Okay, I want to review something that happens sometimes when you're taking these off. It's not unique to sway bar end links, but sometimes the stud will spin as well as the nut spinning. There are 4 ways that I know of that you can get this off. One is to use an impact wrench, and you can make the nut spin faster than the stud can spin if there's any resistance left in the boot at all. The second way is to use an Allen wrench, something that is the same size as the size in this stud right here. So if we put an Allen wrench in there, then you can't use a socket. There are some very special sockets that you could use, but I don't have those. You put an Allen wrench in there, and then you just take a fixed wrench and work the nut off while you're holding the stud still. It's very slow. These are usually tight quarters. It's not a fun job, but it will get it back off. The third way is just to simply cut the stud off. So here I have one that's been cut off. This was on the rear of this car. Some cars have rear ones. So you just take a Dremel or a cutoff tool and just cut it right off. And then lastly, the method that's probably one of the most successful is that you just break the sway bar end link right at the ball. So you're going to see what that looks like here in just a second. That'll make more sense. But you just take the top piece off or the bottom, whichever one is not stuck, and then you just pull down as hard as you can until it breaks off. And inside you'll see a ball that looks just like this, covered in grease. And then you have something you can grip onto with a pair of vice grips. In very rare situations, the opposite side of the stud will have a nut that you can hold on to. But anyways, there's some tips for when it gets stuck and you really are frustrated with it. And as always, thank you very much for watching. Please subscribe to my channel, click thumbs up if this video helped you, and leave any comments about things that I may not have covered that you know about. Appreciate it. Thanks.